All right, so looks like we are live. Good evening. I am yours truly, Dr. Pierre, your favorite board certified internist. If this is your first time catching this series, this is Real Physician Reacts. This is where I take a video, a social media post, maybe even an article, and I give my 2 cents or what I think a physician, especially in my stature, would think about reading or watching or seeing, what's kind of going on across the social media landscape. A big thing for me, I am here to fight misinformation as well as disinformation and really just give my 2 cents where 2 cents needs to be given. And again, if you're catching my more previous episodes, we've talked about a few anti-vaxxers. We've talked about even some celebrities who've said stuff they probably shouldn't be saying. And this week, I am again still focused on the healthcare worker. Last time I talked about a doctor, I think, but I don't even remember his name, but like I talked about a doctor who, again, just is just full of lies, and unfortunately, has such a big platform that those lies are going to hurt people if they haven't already hurt people. But this week, I am going to be kind of walking down. We're going to be watching a video from a nurse who was giving her final walkthrough as she was leaving her hospital. And you may be asking, well, why was she giving her final walkthrough? Well, because of what's happening, especially depending on when you're watching this, because of what's happening, there are certain organizations that are requiring the vaccine, right? COVID vaccine, if you want to work there. And you have some people who are drawing a line, like the nurse that we're going to be talking about, to say that, you know what, I'm not going to do it, and I'd rather be jobless. Or I don't want to say jobless, right? I just rather would be without this specific job if I have to deal with it, right? So we are going to be, again, we're going to be walking down memory lane with her. Of course, we're going to be giving our critiques as critiques need to be given. And then I'm gonna give a kind of a discussion on the importance of what freedom of choice is, and more importantly, why healthcare workers need to understand that it works both ways, right? And not even just healthcare workers, but just people in general. Why, with all of the issues and concerns about the vaccine and COVID-19 in general, why we have to understand that there's typically two parties that have freedom. And you may not like the choice of one party's freedom, but you'll definitely feel the consequences of theirs, right? So again, I'm excited. Again, stick around. Again, you, like always, if you're catching this on my other social media platforms outside of my YouTube channel, make sure you hit the link across the bottom. Watch drbarry.com. It takes you right over to my YouTube channel. Make sure you subscribe. That way, you are always aware of what's going on here on Dr. Barry Pierre TV. So let's get things started, guys. Let's get it started. Let's fire the video up. I'm excited. I hope you're excited just as I am.
Let's go.
Her walk, almost like a walk of shame, unfortunately.
I am being escorted out of Kaiser Permanente Hospital for.
I mean, let's just start there. The fact that she understood what the rules were, and still she had to be escorted out, probably so she could make this video here. Says a lot. And again, she hasn't really said anything yet, but like I just want to kind of set the scene. So this is a person who understands, hey, by this date, if you are not vaccinated, you can't work here, and still has to be not necessarily forcibly removed, but as you can see in the background, she has some security guard escorting her out the way.
For my religious beliefs.
So I wanted to stop there, right? So we're seeing this a lot, like the onus of religious exemption, specifically when it talks about this vaccine. They've done it for other vaccines, but specifically we'll focus on this vaccine here. And interesting enough, all of the major religious organizations are saying, no, it's okay. Because the religious organizations understand that the public health and the greater good outweigh any individual, mindset, right? Like they understand that. And when Moderna as well as Pfizer first came out and you heard of this concern of, stem cell lineage, aborted fetus lineage, and whatnot. When you heard all of these like reasons, it was one of those things where like I knew it was going to be an excuse. And that's why I used to always champion people and say, hey, especially, if you have some, deeply religious beliefs and you don't want to use stem cell or stem cell derived products, which we probably could have a conversation, a whole show just on what it means to be a stem cell derived product. Shout out to Henrietta Lacks. When you have these discussions here, I was pushing people to say, hey, if this is a concern of yours, I think these are the vaccines you're kind of likely want, because I knew the Johnson & Johnson, which is a different type of vaccine, a vector-related vaccine, was derived from that level of creation. So I knew if you were going to have a problem with stem cell related lineage and quote unquote aborted, like if you're going to have that, again, I say quotation marks because it's a lie, but again, that's what, the other side types, wants to run with. If you're going to have a concern with the origin of creation of the vaccine, I say, yep, Moderna and Pfizer are definitely going to be the ones, right? Those are going to be the ones you're going to want. And still, they refuted Moderna, they refuted the Pfizer, and then when Johnson & Johnson came out, they tried to use that as a reason why they also weren't doing the Johnson & Johnson. So what you find, especially with those in this crowd here, is that there is always a reason why they're not going to take it. And unfortunately, what happens is as you keep ripping off excuse after excuse after excuse till they have no more excuses, all of a sudden it's like, oh, freedom of choice, like you're taking away my rights, because they don't have any other valuable and viable reasons why they should be not taking this medication, right? And again, I've said it before, I've said this on previous shows. The onus from those who are anti-COVID, anti-vax, right? I'll just say COVID, but they're likely anti-vax for a lot of things. The onus behind that, I always say, why is it that you are more afraid of the treatment than you are of the disease? No one can actually explain to me why they're more afraid of the vaccine than they are of the disease. No one can actually explain that. They just want to be able to live in a world where, in their mind, the vaccine is bad for them, but the virus is just here but doesn't affect them, and if they get the virus, it doesn't affect anybody else, which again does not happen. This is reality, right? So again, I just wanted to hark on that, because the religious exemptions, and if you'll read articles across the net where the number of religious exemptions have shot up through the roof for people all of a sudden who you didn't even realize were religious or went to church, like claiming some crazy religious reasons why they can't wear a mask, why they shouldn't get vaccinated. Just level of craziness. But again, as you can see, that was her battle, and fortunately the hospital was like, no, we're not taking that. You gotta take it. You gotta get the vaccine, or you just don't work here.
Is I don't want to get the jab, and
the big old jab.
I asked all day for someone to explain to me why my sincerely held religious beliefs are not good enough for Kaiser.
So again, I kind of stressed it. Again, she knew that if you were not vaccinated, you could not work here. She also knew that she was not going to get approved for her religious beliefs, yet she still, now mind you, she's walking in this hospital, no mask, right? Like, let's set the scene. She's walking around this hospital, no mask, even though I know for sure the policy is that a healthcare worker is supposed to wear the mask. So now she's going full defiant. Like, I'm just going to make the biggest scene that I can. I'm going to storm around anywhere I can. I'm also not going to wear a mask, which means I don't care about the other patients who are in the hospital, because like I'm thinking all about me. Right. And again, this is just, again, not shocked, not surprised. This is unfortunately the playbook of those on the other side, who it's all about them, and they do not care about everyone else. Right. Like it just is what it is, regardless of what they tell you.
And no one was able to do that for me. Hi. So now they're escorting me out because I wanted an answer, and they're
escorting you out because you refuse to leave. Like that's why they're escorting you out, because you absolutely refuse to leave. In fact, you refuse to leave at a job that you didn't have because you knew you weren't going to work there, and you came all dressed up. Like, man, you look at it, she's in her scrub top jacket, like she was going as if she was about to work, right? And here you go, reality hit you in the face and said, no, you're not going to work. She probably made a scene which she didn't videotape, and now security has to move her on out. So sad.
Leaving without an answer. And I have some nurses here who are standing with me in solidarity, and I appreciate that.
Now, mind you, the nurses who are standing there in solidarity likely are vaccinated because they want to work.
And I just want all of you to count the cost. I want you to watch this and think, what really matters to me? Because
so the real question is, what really matters to you? Because we know what matters to us, especially in our field. We know that protecting our patients, protecting the general public, trying to get out of, because we're still in this pandemic. I don't know, depending on when you happen to catch this video, we are still in a pandemic, November 4th, 2021. We shouldn't be, but we still are. And the reason we still are is because people like this are standing in the way of progress to get us out, right? Like that's the reality. So yes, we understand, and we know exactly clearly what's going on. It's people like you who we are actually extremely happy that you're leaving the healthcare system per se, right? She's likely just going to find another job who doesn't necessarily require the vaccine, because there's plenty of jobs out there. But fortunately, Kaiser isn't one of them.
I am willing to lose my safety and security, my house, everything for my freedom. And
I mean, question is, how important is your safety, your freedom, and your house if you're willing to lose your job? So this screams a level of privilege that a majority of people in this country do not have. People in this country do not have the privilege to just say, you know what, I'm just gonna not work for my right. I'm not gonna do that, right? Like, the amount of this is just screaming privilege, right? So again, and she's been screaming privilege since she got here, mind you. Again, I set up the scene. This is a person who knew she was not supposed to work, who still not only went to the place of employment and trespassed, right, because she wasn't working, had to be actually escorted out the building because she would not leave, aka trespass, and then wants to expound upon us as if like we should be trying to take her side and say like, oh, look at her standing for her rights. No, you have a level of privilege that affords you to be able to make this type of scene that you're making. And because you got this level of privilege, right, that allows you to make the scene that you're making, people like me get to go online and critique it. And if you follow me on my TikTok page, I actually made a very comical introduction on this video here, right? But I wanted to make sure I talked about it this week as well, only because of the seriousness of what's underlying, right? Like, there's so many different factors that's going on with this crazy lady here, who is a former nurse at Kaiser, thankfully. That again, I can tell you on behalf of the physicians and the healthcare force, I am happy that you are no longer working there. I'm happy that you have the freedom to say and the privilege to say, I don't want to work here no more. I'll go and take my freedom elsewhere. I'm ecstatic that you're able to do so. I'm more ecstatic for your patients who do not have to work with someone like you who does not regard their health. Right. I'm extremely more satisfied that you are not going to be working with patients at Kaiser, because Kaiser says, you know what, for the greater good, you need to be vaccinated if you want to take care of our patients for the greater good. Right. So I'm actually very excited about that part.
I want you to think about that.
We are going down.
Yep.
All right.
Going down.
I love it. Going down. Please leave. So you see the smirk. Yeah. So you see the smirk with this former nurse at Kaiser. You see the scene that she has set up, right? Really, also again, so she can get the type of media fame that clearly she was looking for, and she's definitely found. We've definitely helped, solidify that. And there's this big underlying theme that's been going on that I've been seeing just across the country, especially with healthcare workers, but just people in general, when these vaccine mandates occur, right? So if you've been following along with Lunch and Learn Community, I told you guys, right? I said, hey, right, and this was before there was FDA approval of our vaccines. I said, guys, the vaccines work; they work amazingly well. But please be warned, because they work so amazingly well, once they get FDA approved, you're going to have agencies say, you know what? We're going to require you to get said vaccine. And you may be thinking like, oh, I can't believe they would impinge on my rights. No, like they're not doing it because, again, I'll give them some benefit of doubt. Yes, they're doing it for the greater good. But they understood that this pandemic cost a lot of companies millions and billions of dollars, that it's likely going to take until 2022, 2023 to recover. So they're thinking, what is the best way for me to get back to a sense of normalcy in my business? On top of help others and the greater good of the community, what is the best way to do that? Like, you know what? I'm gonna require you guys get the vaccine. Like, we knew this was happening, right? The writing was on the wall, especially once we realized how safe these vaccines were. All three, Johnson & Johnson, Moderna, Pfizer. Once we realized how safe these vaccines were, the writing was on the wall that the mandates were coming. And even though the mandates were coming, people were shocked, they were surprised, they were hurt, they were sad. But one thing that I keep seeing being driven from the other side and on, certain media channels is that, like, they're taking our freedoms away. And we've mentioned on several of these Real Physician Reacts how they compare vaccine mandates and mask mandates to slavery, to Holocaust. Like, they do that. Like, they're still doing it. Like, to this day, they're doing it. Like I saw the video today. They're still comparing it like to slavery and the Holocaust. Like, that is how crazy that other side is. That's how crazy the other side is. So when you have people who are like that, and then you tell them, hey, you got to get a vaccine to work here, or you can't work here, all of a sudden they seem to think that their freedoms are being taken away. Like, no, they're taking my freedoms away. Like, I should have a choice. No, you do have a choice, right? And I always stress this, like, remember, the choice is up to you. You're deciding whether you're going to stay at the job or not. They didn't say, like, you're going to get this tomorrow. They said, hey, if you want to work here tomorrow, this is what you need to do to work here. That's all they said. You have to make the choice, right? So when you see this lady here, this nurse here who decides that she's going to trespass on property that's not hers, go to work as if she's still employed, even though she does not meet the requirements of employment, and demand. You heard her say it. She was demanding a better explanation besides the explanation they gave her. Yes, I know I don't meet the requirements to work at your facility because I'm not vaccinated, but you need to tell me why my excuse isn't good enough. Like, no, you don't meet the requirements, and it's done. But when you have certain privileges, right, or when you're born with certain privileges, or when you've been somehow thrust upon with certain privileges, you actually think you can go to a place of business and demand that they do something, right? Like, that is the crazy mindset that is going on here, especially with those who are, anti-vaccine, right? Like, those who are anti-vaccine that is the mindset. And again, like I said, I've always talked about, it's always a pick and choose thing, right? It's a pick and choose when they want to follow guidelines. It's to pick and choose when they want to follow directives. It's like, for example, the CDC is their enemy, but if the CDC said, hey, stop eating lettuce from this restaurant, they wouldn't eat lettuce. They wouldn't be like, oh, if the CDC says it, I'm not trusting them. Give me all the lettuce you got. They wouldn't say that. They're like, oh, the CDC says don't eat lettuce. I'm not touching that lettuce. But now when the CDC and scientists after scientists, researcher after researcher, healthcare worker after, and specifically physicians, because, and again, obviously we're not going to, bunch up all the nurses, but I do notice that there is a strong contingent of nursing around the country who I don't know if they really truly understand and believe in the level of science that there is. I just don't understand. And mind you, again, I've already highlighted physicians on the same way, but I noticed there's a good amount of nursing staff across the country who science is not their thing. They don't believe in it. They don't trust it. And then they say wrong things over and over and over again. Right. So again, it's a scary thought of what's going on in this country. But again, that's why I say shout out to freedom of choice. Freedom of choice says you do not have to get vaccinated. I've said this on this this YouTube channel. I've said this on my podcast. I've said this on my blog post. I'm not necessarily forcing you to get vaccinated. But what I am telling you is that if you want to get back to the level of normalcy, getting vaccinated is the best way to do it. These jobs are saying, hey, I'm not forcing you to get vaccinated, but I am telling you that if you want to work here, you got to get vaccinated. So the choice is up to you. So if your livelihood, your house, all your familial responsibilities, if that is a higher bar than you getting a vaccine that is ridiculously safe, if that is a higher bar, then so be it. Like, we'll see you when you make your videos online or when you go work at a place that doesn't necessarily require, you to be vaccinated, right? We'll see you when we see you. So again, I wanted to highlight that, especially, and of course it was good because last week we talked about Jordan Klepper and the anti-mask parents. And unfortunately, especially if you're watching this on my YouTube channel, YouTube took it down because I think there was some copyrighted music in between that time. We're trying to see if we can edit out that part and then kind of have that replay or just kind of re-show up here for you guys. But again, yeah, that's what it is, man. It's a crazy world we're living out right now. We just have to understand that, again, the science will prevail, evidence will prevail, facts will always prevail, and guys, you have freedom of choice. You just don't like that the other side has freedom of choice either. So I'm yours truly, Dr. Barry Pierre. I'm going to see you guys next week.